Hello, everyone. Thanks for joining us. Welcome to Volume 2 of Architects of Acceleration. I'm Phil Shih, founder of Structure Research. In our first volume, we explored the why and the where of building a 100 megawatt AI factory on a 400 megawatt campus in rural North Dakota. Now we focus on the how of the life cycle. How do you actually turn it on and keep it running at scale? Today, we're joined by Applied Digital's Laura Laltrello, COO, and Steve Lattimer, who's the VP of Design and Engineering at Applied Digital. They will discuss the high-stakes transition from construction to live operations. So we'll start by setting the stage a bit. And Steve, we'll start with you. Let's just dive right in. When people hear commissioning, they often think of a final checklist. In reality, what technical milestones truly determine if an AI factory, something that's obviously very new, is ready to support live workloads?
For us, commissioning, it's a process. That's where we jump in and we test our electrical, mechanical, our building management systems, and their associated equipment that's part of those systems, just to ensure that they operate per our requirements and our design standards. So it starts probably 2 months from ready for service, and it just goes through all of our systems, from just checking point to point to making sure that all of the equipment operates the way it's supposed to when we meet set points that we have programmed in there. So that's how we look at our commissioning.
And Laura, what are the biggest differences between, say, commissioning a traditional data center and a high-density AI facility like Polaris Forge?
The first one that's the major difference is scale. It is much larger to be commissioning a 100 megawatt or 150 megawatt building than it is to be commissioning a 9 megawatt data center, or even 20 megawatt data center. So you have a lot more equipment that is working together that you've got to go test, make sure it's running, and get it operational. And you also have a much bigger team that you need to have staffed and trained and ready to start operating that building.
Did you find, just a quick follow-up, did you find that there's in terms of getting ready for that RFS target date, did you find, versus your experience in traditional data centers versus an AI factory, that the timelines were accelerated, that they were shorter, or what kind of differences did you see and experience in building this out?
Steve, why don't you start on answering that, and I'll add from an operational perspective.
From the commissioning side of it, it's not much different from your typical data center. The equipment's pretty much the same. It's the quantity of the equipment, it's the scale that we're building at. That's the biggest difference. So instead of in your normal data center, you hit 4, 5, 6 lineups, and in the AI world, you're hitting 40 lineups in some cases. So it's the scale, and that's what takes the time. You're testing a lot more equipment and expecting the same outcome on a much larger scale.
And that scale makes it so that you're coordinating with more people in some cases to make sure all of that equipment is in place and working and up and running, and that you've got enough people to go operate that equipment. So it doesn't give us any more time to get the data centers up and running. It certainly, though, does add to the complexity of making sure you can do it all at once.
Mm-hmm. Sounds like it's actually more in the planning phase in terms of getting the resources, the people, and of course to have a game plan to get everything up and running.
Absolutely.
Yeah, our commissioning, we start planning probably from the time we break ground, probably within the first 30 to 45 days of breaking ground, we start talking commissioning. So there's a lot of planning that goes into it.
Great insights. We'll shift from kind of build to operations, and we'll go back to you again, Steve. So where do risks typically surface when construction gives way to live operations?
Where we normally see our risks and where we normally see most of our problems happening is mainly our mechanical equipment. Our mechanical equipment is a lot more temperamental, and the set points have to be more precise. So a lot of times we see the risks on our set points for our mechanical equipment. We're testing for a certain parameter day one, and as we start getting through our commissioning process, things change. So it's the set points in our mechanical systems that are what trip us up most of the time.
The drawings that you have are a perfect world. They're very ideal. Everything's going to work just great. And then when you put it in the environment, there's always some sort of factor that you didn't think about that you've got to go change the set point or adjust for, adapt for. And like Steve said, a lot of times the mechanical equipment, it could have been sitting there a while. Like it might have been installed pretty early in the project's life cycle. And by the time you get to commissioning, it's just been sitting, and things happen to mechanical equipment when it sits. Then you've got to go refresh it and make sure that it can get up and running to be able to open the building.
Interesting. So what systems or decisions matter the most in those final weeks as you approach that RFS date?
It's going to be your power, your cooling, and your security are going to be three of the biggest systems that matter the most. And then making sure everybody can operate that. If you can't get your power and cooling to work, then you can't get your data halls up and running. And you can't get your data halls up and running, then there is no data center to be started. And if you can't make all of that secure, then you can't protect the investment that your tenant is placing in that building. So those are primary. There are others that really matter as well, like making sure that you've got your IT system up and running so that you can see what the alarms are and you can see how the equipment's behaving and you can monitor everything. So there's certainly nothing that isn't critical in a critical infrastructure environment, but those three are the main.
Okay. Let's maybe talk a little bit about tenant readiness. So Steve, question for you. I mean, what does ready mean for an operator versus, what it means for the tenant who's actually going to occupy the facility?
For us, for an operator, they're looking at it like when we we're ready for you to take RFS, you're ready to take the system. They're looking at it like we've done all of our testing, we've done all of our verifications, we've went through our scripts, we've done all the failure scenarios through all of our commissioning. And so operations, they're thinking that we're ready to go. We've worked out all the cobwebs out of everything, and the system is now ready for them to start managing it.
Great. Laura, this was something obviously that kept you guys really busy last year and the year before, but what lessons did, the project in Ellendale, North Dakota reinforce about tenant acceptance as well as operational transparency?
Planning early was one lesson that we learned, that we actually did pretty well at planning early. Each of the sub-teams had past construction just to get it ready for day one, at least a 20-week, every week I've got to get this done, this done, this done, this done, so that we stayed on track to be able to get ready. Some of the things, though, that we could have done much better, we had things like small hardware, like security cameras, access readers, going in later in the process than it should. So when you're putting those devices in, you're putting holes in walls. You put holes in walls, you create dirt. You have to clean. And so that just takes a lot more energy than what you really want at the end of a project. So we've made some adjustments in the way we've done the scheduling, and we've done the same thing with our fit out in the data halls so that we can do a little bit more of that integrated and earlier, so that you're not, going after sheetrock that's sitting in piles on the floor because you just drilled a hole in the wall and then repainting it and doing all of that extra work. You can do it up front to be ready a little bit faster than what we did in the first round.
So it sounds like milestones, are there. Obviously got to plan around them, but it sounds like there's a lot of contingency planning, unforeseen circumstances that you have to deal with in hitting that RFS day.
Absolutely. And in the infrastructure that we have, and the size of the equipment we have, everything is precious. Every single piece of equipment out there is precious. And you do have contingencies and you do have things that you've got to move around, but you also have to protect everything that you put on the site to make sure that nothing happens to it, so you don't have to pull those contingencies out.
Coordination with our vendors is key, because when we're commissioning, things break. So we have to have great coordination with our vendors, so they either have a a surplus of spare parts on site, or they have access to spare parts within sometimes same day or within the very next day. So there's a lot of coordination that goes into it to make sure everybody's ready for what we're doing and when we're ready to turn over for RFS.
Let's start with you, Laura. I mean, looking back, what would you tell other operators attempting their first AI factory commissioning, just based on this experience? You know, what would be your maybe top 1 or 2 kind of pieces of advice or suggestions even?
Have experts, communicate well, and understand the order of things. Truly understand the order of things. If you might have all of the steps, but if you get them out of sequence, it can cost you a lot of time. So knowing how to put the right project plan together, and that goes beyond just construction. That's the coordination of all parties, having the right communication system, and then having true experts in place that have done this before will really help. Makes a big difference.
Steve, did you have anything to add to that?
I would piggyback on the communication side. Communication and just making sure people are aware of what it's going to take to commission this facility, starting that communication early instead of later, and making sure that a lot of that communication is we get stuck on video calls. A lot of what we do has to be in person. You have to have the people out in the field talking every day. What are we going to work on? What are we going to test? What is going to work today? And it's got to be an investment from everybody. Without the investment from all parties involved, it becomes very, very difficult to meet your deadlines. And priority lists are critical. Priority lists are critical. And so people can meet your expectations.
Great insights. I mean, we you know, what's really exciting is, as an industry analyst, this is not going to be the first of many. And there's a lot of kind of learnings that you're taking from this. Maybe the last question, as Applied Digital starts to kind of, consider and enter new markets, how does this commissioning playbook going to evolve as you look to kind of build the next site in North Dakota or a site in another state in the United States? Any last thoughts on that? I think we'll start with you, Steve, and Laura follow up.
I think the business model that we have that we're working on producing the same facility. One, it's cookie cutter. We're trying to, as in some of our people's words, build our own franchise. And so getting through our initial builds, these first of its kinds, the building 3s, learning from building 3 and being able to take those lessons to the next building is going to make it extremely a lot easier, and we'll be able to move faster. So this first one's going to be difficult, but I think what we learn from this, we'll be able to take that and move it to our next building, and it just becomes very, very fluid.
Along with iterating on those lessons learned along the way. So we want one plan, but we want that plan to have continuous improvement and always get better and learn from the last thing that we did. We will also see more ownership at the site level. There was a lot of oversight on the first building from people that have done this for years and years, like Steve. And for our next sites, we want to be able to give them a roadmap and a program and a recipe, and then let them run with it with a little bit more autonomy so that we can move fast in multiple places.
Great insights, and I look forward to tracking the next project. Thanks again, everybody, for participating and joining us. That wraps up episode 1. Thank you, viewers, for joining us and for this latest episode of Architects of Acceleration. Be sure to tune in for episode 2, where we go inside the AI factory to demystify day-to-day operations and show how uptime is actively protected. For that session, we'll be joined by Wayne Watson, VP of Data Center Operations, and Aaron Combs, Site Director, who will share their perspectives on the high-stakes reality of orchestrating physical systems under continuous stress. Again, thanks for joining us. If you'd like to connect, head to applieddigital.com or find Applied Digital on LinkedIn. We'll see you in episode 2. Thanks.